Oh, that's it, yeah.
All right, as I mentioned, I have to present certain principles that over the time they seem to have just gone on the wayside. The first principle is you have to understand, recognize we're learning Torah, and in Torah itself we're learning Hasidus. That's nothing new, everybody knows that. However, we have what we call a competing system of thought. Chochma Chitzenis. Very enticing because of the fact that it presents everything in simple, logical, worldly presence, a tangible representation. And it would appear to us that by knowing this, we know the whole thing and we know it really clearly and we know it true. This is the thing that kind of disturbed me very profoundly. I allowed the questions to come from all kinds of different directions because of what it says, that ultimately one should find answers to all, even worldly questions within Torah. The Rambam writes that he included in his holy sefer all kinds of quote-unquote scientific principles, so that everything will be known b'sefer v'al sefer Hashem. But one must not misconstrue, misunderstand the basis and the principle behind that. The principle behind that is not that actually there is some kind of fundamental reality and basis for Seichel Chitzeni. Seichel Chitzeni can be used, as we mentioned many times, as a stepping stone, as a moshel, but not to interpret that as real Seichel, speaking about the divine truth. The Rebbe has blessed us, I've been painting people all the time, with real seichel. Real seichel is, as we mentioned many times, and just clearly, the first principle of seichel is emunah. Emunah is something which is inherent in the neshama. It is not.
Please mute the phone.
What?
Please mute the phone.
Oh.
Sorry.
It is not a product of comparative investigation. It is not based on what makes sense. Emunah is a principle. It's a divine principle. The Rambam begins his sefer. As I mentioned before, the Rambam clearly says he includes in the sefer everything. And yet he says, the Yisoida is Yisoida, it's a foundation of all foundations. And the basis of Chochma His Leda, it is to principally know that there's a first being who provides all knowledge, all beings. In other words, anything that one understands on the basis that he has observed the world and the experimented worldly phenomena, does not at all represent the real Chochma that we're talking about. Not only doesn't represent, but as a matter of fact, it interferes, it camouflages it, it pushes it away. Because, as I said before, it seems to present some kind of a clarity. This clarity is as dark as the night itself. We point out all the time, and I hope you all reflect on it. We have the faculty of sight, we have the faculty of touch. Touch is what brings things down to our level. It gives us experiencing the actual entity. Sight is some kind of a cognizance that is really distant from us. Yet it is important, imperative that you recognize that sight is that which brings the reality of the world to us, not touch. Pointed out from the halacha says that two witnesses can testify in Bezdin only if they saw the occurrence, not if they had experienced it in any other way. Even if it is clear beyond a shadow of doubt. The reason sight is such tremendous significance is that sight is not something that we experience by our physical, now worldly reality. Sight is a neshama experience. Sight is based on the principle that there is motivation, that there is a truth behind the physical existence. And therefore, even if I don't touch it, even if it doesn't affect me, here's its truth. I relate to it because of its truth, not because it affects me. This is extremely important. This is what human life per se is. And this is particularly when it comes to Torah, particularly, ultimately when it comes to Chassidus. We are learning clearly very deep Chassidus. And it is so deep that the Rebbe does not hesitate and he goes into every detail. What does it mean that we know? And how come this knowledge does not affect our choice? And we try to get into it, we try to identify these principles. But we identify these principles on a divine level rather than a worldly level. These questions and this whole process does not give venue, give substance to a worldly perception of reality. We have to recognize in everything where is the divine reality. We have, over the period or the time, we have identified various situations that speak of this very directly. The latest one, as clear as can be, when we became to recognize an interesting phenomenon that everything in the world falls downwards. This principle that everything falls downwards, the world has its own interpretation of it. Complete with proofs, complete with the ability to grasp it, ability to measure it, everything. What is lacking? What is lacking is that we fail to recognize that this is also a divinely created phenomenon. And it is true only because the world is a divine creation. We must not lose sight of this fundamental truth. We can get lost in the worldly self-identity, self-justification, and completely forget about where it's coming from, what it's about. As, unfortunately, I have to mention this, we can attest it from our own learning. We're learning the deepest of Hasidus. And we have questions, and we allow the questions because we want that, like the Rambam says, you can know everything with Sefer Hashem. But this is not to be misinterpreted, to say that this is what Hasidus is based on. That this is the true Hasidus, the true Seichel. Chas v'sholem. This is what bothered me immensely. Particularly yesterday's shiur and all the questions and all. I was shocked to hear what was happening. We lost sight of where we are. We must not forget the world is a divine creation. And as such, in every part of the world, in every aspect of the world, there is a divine quality. It is true only due to this divine quality. Like we said, the phenomenon, principle that things fall down. And again, things fall down. Simple. The world makes it fall down. Things fall down. That is representing of a divine principle. And unless we can relate to that and fully understand and fully accept it, fully relate to it, our seichel is completely false. If one understands the world perfectly, but loses sight of the he has absolutely not a bit of truth in his thought. Not in the beginning. It is like, I'm giving these demonstrations so we understand. It is like saying we have light, forget about the sun. We have light.
I think
To me?
I think part of yesterday's conversation was, how is it fitting that things fall down inside a divine world? What is it? What is that?
Whatever it is, be trying to understand it from a divine perspective.
Sure.
You must not lose sight of that.
Right, but I think
No matter what we explain.
exactly. I think yesterday there was some productive conversation, and that was, for me anyway, how would it be that in Hashem's world things fall down, and what does that mean inside
And what
the
it mean?
godly world? Well, I'm still okay.
And we understand it not from an inside, from a worldly perspective. We understand it from the part that it is a divine creation. And we seek to a means to understand it, we have to see what is the significance of the fact that this is a divine creation. This is not to be understood from within the worldly process. This is how we lose sight of where we're coming from. Thank you, Yitzhak. We learned yesterday a long session, and the whole time I felt there's not an aspect, a bit of ruchnius, a bit of chayes. I'm trying to accommodate and answer the questions. And the Rambam says, we also try to answer all the questions from within Sefer Hashem, but with hoping that it will turn around, but it hasn't been turning around.
Well, maybe to sweeten that slightly, after the shiur, we sat together. It was Yehudah's father-in-law's Yortzeit, and we reviewed point by point. What's it saying inside? Where did we have an issue? What was the response? So I feel like it was not counterproductive, even though there might have been hard issues to deal with.
Was the conclusion of all the discussions and all the recognitions that everything that you are observing and you are studying and you understand is revealing to you a godly principle. A divine principle. If this was not the conclusion, you haven't begun to learn the reality. You're not even seeking the reality. You're seeking to understand the world from a worldly perspective. This is why I'm using this as a catalyst. Everything falls down. There's such clear explanations why it falls down. We have a whole theoretical system. And we can prove it. Even though nobody understands what do you call it, the pull, what you call what's
Gravity. Yeah.
the gravity understands what gravity is, but to prove it's there. And therefore we accept that this is the basis of this is a basic phenomenon in the world. And therefore we can put it at rest. And there is not an iota, there's not a mention, a touch of a divine purpose in it. Zero.
Wait, can I ask a question on this?
Yes, just let me conclude my introduction. This is something which is very troublesome. We have learned and learned and learned, and the learning of Hasidus should bring us closer to experiencing the divine presence. And Chas v'Sholom, it has the opposite of it. And this is why the introduction, we must turn around. We may ask questions, even bothers us. This is why I said the value of questions if it bothers us. But we must not ask questions because this is going to bring about the truth, to know the truth of Torah. It's not. This is not the truth of Torah. Gravity is not the truth of Torah. Gravity is a superficial, meaningless aspect that is the result of a divine principle. It is not the truth itself. And if you choose to ignore the divine principle, this is what you're going to see. Chas v'sholom, we are not going to choose to ignore the divine principle because our whole focus is to recognize and to come closer and to bring ourselves closer and to bring our divine principles into our mind and thought. To understand the world without that, that is the cause of darkness, of ignorance, of lifelessness. This is not what we are seeking. Yes.
When we talk about the divine meaning from that perspective, the emes perspective, and then we talk about it like this kind of very worldly gravity. Is when we say the whole gravity thing, is that what we mean when we say that the world in a bechinas yesh, like it could be looked at in that sense, or that's even going even beyond, even further than bechinas yesh? In other words, when you know what I'm saying, is that like what we mean when we say that on a worldly level?
Okay. Here is a principle. On the one hand, the Rebbe says that's what the Rebbe should create, bechinas yesh. But please understand, the Rebbe should create the bechinas yesh. A yesh that is a true presence, a tangible presence. We can know it by tangibility, touching it, not by seeing it. It's a phenomenal thing. We don't have to resort, so to speak, to its source. Just know it at the point when we need it. Yes. However, this must never be the end of the story. If we see that the Rebbe created a bechinas yesh, which is a falsehood, there must be a divine principle behind it for it. It is meant for us to reveal a divine principle. It is not meant for us to drown in the bechinas yesh. We all know the general structure of the human life, human neshama. There's rotzen and oinek. Then there is Chochma, bina and das, on a more conscious and more tangible or understandable level. Then there is midas, ahava b'yira. All the way down to machshava, dibur, u'maisa. Maisa is the final stage. Maisa is when you see a person in distress, in need, you have feeling for him, you have compassion for him, there's the seichel and midas and all that. And finally, and then it translates in an action. And you go out and you give him something physically that will alleviate his distress. This does not mean to interpret that this whole human being consists in this morsel of bread.
Morsel of?
Bread. This is not what it's about. Hashem brought his own greatness, his own principles, all the way down to a worldly level. Like we said many times, you open your eyes, not hands and not feet, eyes, and all of a sudden you see a deep infinity in the world. And you recognize that this is something which I cannot fathom. There's no way I can put it in perspective, can understand it. This is clearly a presence, presenting the presence of his super world, even though I see it in the world. What conclusion should one come to by this experience? Should one therefore, become so enticed by the greatness of the world? Or should that bring him to recognize that this great world really has a creator? It represents something which is super worldly. You're actually looking at the world, but you're seeing beyond the world. Something that the world cannot possibly fully identify or relate to. The Pasuk says, David HaMelech says, I see Shomecha, I see your habits. Which is the action of your fingers. And then the moon and the sun. The moon and the sun is a physical presence. How do you see the divine presence in this? The moon and the sun, the moon and the stars, which you have perfectly arranged. This perfect arrangement and how everything comes together to alert and to reveal something greater than itself. This is where you recognize the divine creation. this is not as an issue for endlessly, but I just want to bring it back to us. Yes, indeed, any question that really troubles us and does not allow us to get into the thoughts of Chassidus must be dealt with. But the aim and the purpose of dealing with it is not to give it verity, not to substantiate the question, but to see beyond it, to see the divine principle behind it. And again, we have the catalyst. Everything falls down. And we have a very simple explanation. The earth is the boss of the world. And the earth acts on its own. It's doing its own thing. But the earth is part of big creation, of the divine creation of the whole world. Is the earth acting independently? Everything that we identify in the world, excuse me, must reconnect to the sense of what this is all about.
Yeah. Yesterday, I thought another great point that came out was about eating.
About what?
Eating, and how you illustrated for us so clearly that without that, our thoughts would lack potency. You wouldn't go from machshava to dibur to ma'aseh. So it did go around full circle. I thought it was very productive in that sense.
Productive if it brings us back to the source.
But sure, that was the goal. That was the journey.
That was the goal, right? But we can lose the goal. We can say, yes, eating is what's supposed to our life.
Right, but we went through that.
We tried to go through it. I'm saying this: eating allows life to be, but life is not eating. Life is an neshama phenomenon, literally a divine presence in each of us. Because of this life, we have the phenomenal qualities, what's called oin agarot. I just want to touch on oin agarot. Oin agarot is one of those super principles which is hardly ever dealt with. And the reason it's not dealt with is because this is something which we must find in our own intelligence.
I missed the word. What did you say? Lawyer, what?
Oinigen Rotzen.
I'm sorry.
Oinigen Rotzen, again, like everything else, like gravity. So yeah, it's a worldly experience. This world level experience of Oinigen Rotzen defies worldly recognition. Oinigen Rotzen is a statement of the life itself is what I appreciate. Not the experience, the world, the experience of life. Life itself is what I actually experience, what I appreciate. This life itself appreciation is the basis of everything else that I pursue. I'm going to be able to understand and explain the entire physical phenomena of the world, gravity and super speed and all that. I will be missing my own life. And I was given a life element by the Mavis to understand the life of the entire creation. That is what my focus is.
Again, I was given a life element to understand
To relate to the life, to the overall life in the world, to divine life in the world. This is what the focus is. As we learn, a human being acts, and he acts in the world, and he has phenomenal capability of affecting the world. Pure, that was discussed already a great time. He must not lose sight of what is occurring here when he is building his houses. He's building these houses because within the world there is that spirit that says it's meant to be developed indefinitely. That is the primary resource, the primary source, the primary spirit that allows a person to undertake this kind of buildings. I want to ask a very point-blank question. Among the phenomenal structures that we come across is the Empire State Building, a building of 113 stories high. Whoever conceptualized such mishugas, where did it come from? Did that develop in the engineer's mind because, oh, look what we have been able to put brick upon brick. This is what, therefore we're going to brick upon brick 113 stories. Really, this is not what enticed the whole process. There's a superhuman spirit that says, I want to bring down and utilize the entire atmosphere that Rabbi provided. It's a phenomenal undertaking. And we will go through all kinds of difficulties and challenges. How are we going to accomplish this? And when we observe it, we are not struck by the challenge of how it was built. We're struck by the challenge of how it was conceived. This conceptualization is a divine presence in the world. This is the principle that we must never lose sight of, despite the fact that we have a perfectly logical system, process, means of getting there. So no matter how clearly we understand the physical world, we must always revert back and say, what is all this about? All this is to bring the divine presence into our direct experience. And this is why in Torah in general, like the Rambam says, and in Hasidus also we have unlimited reach into the physical world, not Chas v'Sholom to stay there, but to open up our minds and our hearts and our spirit to lift us out of it. To lift us out of it.
It's an interesting dynamic. We have phenomenal reach into the physical world for the sake of lifting us out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Absolutely. Because the reason the physical world has that upward reach is because there's a spirit behind it. It would not have on its own. It's not, I said, the Empire State is not brick upon brick.
Is that a statement that you're mandated to work in the physical world, and by virtue of that, you rise above it?
No, I understand what you mean.
Again,
The whole concept,
yeah.
the whole concept on the human level, to go up there is because of this going up. Is to reach out to a broader reality in the world. And certainly, when we learn Hasidus, and we're learning, deeper Hasidus, and we have all kinds of, in order to understand, we allowed all certain questions, so forth. How do we get to this? How do we get to that? All the things that we bring down to explain it must not blind us to what we are talking about. It must always result in conclusion that we are talking about something which is super world. Time is very short. I just want to mention very quickly. There was a Rabbi Rashab. The Rebbe spoke very, very powerful that everything is on a course. And he said, and I want to show it to you. He says, I couldn't have been was very, took a lot of mashke. I want to show it to you. It was a very dramatic moment. And then the Rebbe says, pass me up a plate. It's dramatic. Then the Rebbe says, I changed my mind. Why did I change my mind? Because you will be mispoiled from the Gashmias instead of the Ruchnias. If I show you how true and profoundly reveal the Gashmi says, what is that going to, what's that in general? Worship the Gashmis. Again, this was like an introduction to something, hopefully, will put everything behind us. And we should always be focused. All questions are welcome, only for the purpose of revealing the divine element in it. And that's where it must end up. Okay?